All right, we are live. Another exciting episode of the Legacy Lounge podcast with me, Tino Gordon, and I have back again Mercedes Joyner, owner of JMC Strategic Consulting. You're a branding and marketing expert, also a mom to
Yeah.
good old Max. Just
Yeah.
phenomenal, just out here, just doing it for your son, doing it for the community, doing it for the state and the nation. Let's just say the world. Just doing it for the world,
I'll take that. I'll take that.
doing it for the universe, the world known, galaxy known
I will take that.
Mercedes Joyner. Let's go.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be back. Last time was great. So let's see how this conversation unfolds today.
Oh, I'm sure it will be phenomenal as always.
Yes.
You know, because it's literally going to be legendary because everything we do is legendary, and also you're always leaving a legacy. Somebody in the future
Always.
can watch this and just be like, "Oh, yo, think about Max. Well, think about Max watching this in the future."
Gosh. You know what? When he was first born, well, before he was born, actually, when I was pregnant with him, I would record videos,
Hmm.
and like I have them for him. So he has like his own email and like Google Drive of videos and stuff of like me and his dad making videos.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. So I watch them now, and then I get all emotional and my mommy hormones and cry. But yeah.
So starting with that,
Yeah.
what is a message that you would leave to him today?
Oh, um, I think it all works out. I think if I had to leave one message to Max is don't change you and it all works out. As long as you continue to walk in who you are, the essence of who you are, and walk in your purpose, it's all going to work out. As long as you're not doing harm to people, you're not doing harm to yourself, you'll figure it all out.
Yeah. I was thinking
Yeah.
recently, you've
Mhm.
survived 100% of everything you've been through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing is like
Mhm.
you look back and you know what that's kind of what I was thinking about today because I was listening to I listen to Sarah Jakes Roberts all the time, and then I also I was just reflecting because a couple like about 3 weeks ago our family lost my grandpa, and I
Mm.
was reflecting on everything that we've learned from him and just how how it's went with our family, and I'm like, time I don't want to say you get past it, but
Mhm.
time really helps heal things, and you really have to give yourself time and grace and understand that you're forever growing.
Yeah.
We look for these expectations of I want to do this, I want to do this, or I want to have this amount of money, I want to have this job. And what kind of life do you want? What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? Like it all works out. No matter what it looks like in the moment or what it may have looked like in the past, if you walk into your purpose, it's all going to work out. And it's crazy because it's going to work out at the craziest times. And you're just going to be flabbergasted like, how did this even happen? But you have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. It's almost like
Ooh.
a train.
Ooh, you said a lot there. A
Yeah.
lot there. Okay. Let's back up and unpack it first.
Yeah.
So you were talking about one, knowing who you want to be.
Yeah.
How, you know, that's one thing I ask a lot of people. Like, they're like, okay, well, I have all these goals and stuff. I was like, the first thing you got to figure out is who do you want to be?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's that requires a lot of time and a lot of self-reflection and soul searching.
Yeah. It absolutely does. It
Hmm.
absolutely does. Figuring out who you want to be is probably one of the hardest things. I remember my dad used to tell me all the time, and he still does, not to change me. And when I was little, I just thought that like he was just talking. And I'm like, why does he always say that? Of course I wouldn't change me. But as I went to college and I became an adult, it's like I told him, I talk to him now, and I'm like, people are not themselves. You have so many people who don't even know who they are. So the foundations of knowing who you are and
Hmm.
knowing what you want to be and knowing what you want to do is so important. It's so important. And I'm just glad that I've always taken that advice. That's how I want Max to be, is don't change you, and not in a bad way of like any negative habits. Of course, make yourself better, but your foundation of who you are, don't go around changing you to, appease other people or to get promotions or whatever that may look like. Don't change you, because if you're meant to be in a space, or if something is meant for you, I 1,000% believe that it will be for you. So
Yeah, yeah. I know, man, so much, so much. So when figuring out who you want to be, a lot of times we do look to the outside and see what other people have. For example, let's just talk about fitness, right?
mhm.
So I do have a lot of friends who are bodybuilders, personal trainers, just like ripped and jacked dudes. And I look at them and I'm just like, is that what I want to be? But then when I see the work and the effort and the progress to get there, I'm really like, eh.
No, I don't want to do all that.
Eh. you know?
Yeah,
So it's I don't envy anybody who's like that, just
yeah,
in shape,
yeah.
because I know the thing that it takes to get there. It's just like I'm never envious of what anybody has or the success or whatever material possessions that they have, because I don't know what they had to go through and what they had to give up to get it.
Exactly, exactly. And that's the thing, like you never know what someone has to go through to get
Mhm,
to where they are. You don't know their journey, you don't know their path, their obstacles, their struggles. A lot of what I do is branding and marketing, and especially with social media. And when I'm meeting with clients or businesses, I'm all the first thing that I always ask, one, I ask their goals, but the first thing I'm like, what is your story? And then sometimes I get this perplexed look like, what do you mean? What is my story?
mhm,
What is your story? Why are you doing what you want to do? What is the motivation behind it? What is your why? And some of them really have to take a moment and think about that, because they weren't leading with their why, and they weren't leading with their story. They were
mhm.
leading with trying to get likes, trying to get sales, trying to get followers. And it's like, that's wonderful, but that's not going to sustain your audience. You want to really be able to connect to people in life, and not just on branding and marketing, but in real life. Like, I'm a people's person. So I wake up every morning and I'm excited about life. I'm excited about people, because you really can change someone's life, or your life can be changed just by your interactions with people. And people are genuinely dope. Like, so many people are always like looking at the glass half full, and it's like, hold on, the fact that you're above the ground and not below it, I need you to fill it up a little bit, because you're
Mhm,
alive. So
mhm.
it's like, even just starting there, you may be having the worst situation going on, but if you are breathing, you're already ahead of the game, and you already have an opportunity to make it happen, to make it better. So it's about
Yeah,
telling the story.
I like that, because I like when people are like, you know, is the glass half full or empty? And I just go, you either got something or you don't. There's
And
something in the
literally,
glass or it's not, you know?
literally, the fact that you even have a glass to fill up is
Woo.
good. Like, some people don't even have that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's give people examples and action steps. So you said the first thing is telling your story, knowing your why. So let me ask you, Mercedes, what is your why?
I think my why has changed. Originally, I used to tell my dad all the time. I used to tell him, like, you had me for a reason, you and my mom. Like, I felt like as though I was the chosen one. And it turned into a family joke, because
Mhm.
I'm a middle child. So usually the middle child is like nowhere to be seen, away, doesn't really get a lot of attention. And it was opposite for me. I was always doing stuff, but I always knew I wanted to change the world. I just didn't
Yeah.
know how. I always knew that my purpose of being here wasn't about me. It's about what can you do to make people around you better. So
Yeah.
I discovered my why in my love for people. Just my in my existence of understanding, like, what you say and how you say it, you have the power to really change the world. The essence of making something better. So finding my why was just me tapping into me. A lot of places and a lot of times where I go, you'll rarely ever see me with an attitude or like sad or upset. I'm human, it happens, but I'm
Hmm.
very mindful and I'm very intentional of how I act and the energy that I get off, because I never want to give that to somebody else. Like if I'm having not the best day, I'm just gonna have to take a little moment and isolate myself. But I switch my attitude so quick because I understand my why of, hey, yeah, this may be an obstacle or you may be having a bad moment, but just because you're having a bad moment doesn't mean it's a bad day, doesn't mean it's a bad life. So your why can really change your perspective. And so action steps in finding your why is more so, what do you like to enjoy? What do you like to do? What gets you excited? So like I said, people get me excited. Events get me excited.
Hmm.
Telling your story, social media. So I'm really big on communication. That's what I went to school for. I started talking early and I've never shut up since. um, so that was my why. It was like, okay, how can I teach people to understand the value of communication, of what you say really makes a difference? Not only what you say, but how you process and how you listen and how people receive messages based on their perspective and their experiences, like embracing our differences. So many times you have people that are separated because we're different, and it's like, no, I want you to be different from me. You're gonna be different from me, but that's something to embrace. So that's where I would say start with your why. What excites you? And if you don't know what excites you, or if you don't know what your why is, start paying attention to yourself. Start auditing yourself. What gets me excited? What do I like to be around? Pay attention to how you feel, good or bad, when you're around certain people or when you're around certain things. Like, I get excited when I'm at events. I get excited when I'm around people. I get very, very excited around food.
Oh yeah,
So
for sure.
I am like, food. First off, if it's an event, there's people there and there's going to be a food and there's going to be food, I'm having a ball. You have everything in one. And a little bit of that has changed since becoming a mother. With like Max excites me, just seeing the essence of how you can have a human and he can be of two people but still be so much of himself and his
Hmm.
personality and his development. But then I see that, I remember when I was carrying him, I prayed for a discernment out of this world, because I was younger. I was in an environment where I was working around people that were older, had more experience, and I just wanted better discernment. Little did I know that my discernment was going to come in what I was carrying. And
Yeah.
like my son, he'll be 2 in December, so he's like 21 months 4 weeks. I have an app.
Hey, shout
Um,
out to December, baby.
yeah, yeah. So he has a discernment out of this world. And it's been like that ever since he was born. But you get things in other ways. It's not always you who gets
Hmm.
what you need. So your why is going to change, just like your purpose is going to change. So you have to be adaptable and you have to be open to learning and you just have to be excited. I start the day off being grateful. I found when you start the day off being grateful, any obstacles or any problems that you think you have, they're not going to go away, but they become minimal to what possibly could not be happening if you didn't even have breath in you.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Mercedes. You said that your why is people, but what is it about people that really gets you so excited?
I would say experiences, like seeing people be excited once they learn something that they didn't know, or what really gets me excited, because I've had this experience with myself, when you see someone and they may not have had the most confidence or they may not have understood something, and they have that aha moment of their
Hmm.
value or their worth, or just that aha moment of what they can do. And I see this a lot with my clients. um, just seeing that they don't know how to tell their story or they don't know what their story is. So seeing people understand their value and tap into their purpose, oh my goodness, that right there, that excites me, because once you understand your value and you understand your purpose, you are unstoppable.
Yeah.
Like, that brings me so much happiness and joy, and especially as a mother now, because I think of things different. And I'm just like, wow, you have so many people, unfortunately, out here who don't know how amazing they are, who don't know how dope that they really are and can be. Not because they do it on purpose, but because they've had experiences, they've had obstacles that unfortunately have tore down their confidence. So to see
Hmm.
that built up and to see people wear their confidence on them, in my mind, I don't want to say there's not a such thing as arrogance, but it's about how you wear it. Like, I don't like for people to be humble. Everybody's always talking about be humble, be humble. And once again, like people say, once you look up the definition of humble, you
I was
don't
gonna say
want
that.
you
Yeah.
don't want to be humble. There is nothing low or anything, looking down or downplaying about you. You should never want to be humble. Now, what you want to be is aware. That I feel like you have arrogant and you have humble. Aware is right where you need to be. People don't want
Mhm.
you to be arrogant, but people always want to tell you to be humble. Don't be humble. Be aware. Be aware of who you are, how amazing you are, and that you have no limits. Because once you're aware, you're intentional. And that's what I want people to be, is intentional of their confidence and their value.
Yeah. So for me, I know having conversations with people all the time, it's like being aware or being attentive, and it's like people don't necessarily know what that means or exactly how to do it. So I put it this way: people will say, "Oh, Tino, you know what? I can't do what you can do because I just don't have that outgoing personality or that charisma." And so I'm just like, wait a minute, let's unpack this. Let's break it down into simple, actionable steps,
Yeah.
because charisma isn't just a thing. Like, I don't look at it as a character trait that I was naturally born with, that I have and that you don't have. So I'm like, well, what is it about me? Like, let's break it down. What is it about me that makes charisma? And so
Yeah.
I would tell people, okay, well, do you look people in the eye when you're talking to them? Do you
Mhm.
smile? Do you actually listen and pay attention? Are you curious? All of those things make up what is called charisma.
Yeah.
But it's not something that is just like that. Oh, this person has it and you don't. You can, all of these things are skills that you can build on and develop. So when you're saying like, hey, be aware, what is something that people can do to actually be aware?
I think the first part of being aware is one, being aware of yourself. So listening to yourself, listening to your emotions, tapping in with who you are, tapping in with your energy. A prime example of that is in American culture, we over glamorize being burnt out and overworking ourselves. We're not listening to our bodies. We're not listening to our emotions. Really tap in with who you are, and then become aware of your surroundings. Have you I used to do this thing in college where I would go to like the bars, and I did it as a study for a project, and I would people watch.
Oh yeah,
And
I did that too.
oh my gosh, it's so fun. I find myself doing it now when I'm out, and it's so fun. But I was doing and conducting a study of how people interact when they think no one's watching, and the things that you see and the things that you catch and the things that you pay attention to. It's absolutely amazing. Even if you go to the mall and people watch, you have to self watch. You have to start watching yourself, paying attention to your movements. So many people move throughout the day with just doing things. Pay attention
Mhm.
to yourself and pay attention to other people. Pay attention to how much time it takes you to get ready in the morning. Pay attention to how much time it takes you to get out of bed in the morning. How many times are you pressing snooze on your alarm? How much time are you taking to shower, brush your teeth, get dressed? Are you eating breakfast? It's about your systematics of you, the systems that you have in place for yourself, and the systems that you have in place for others when they interact with you, is going to let
Mm.
you know how intentional that you are or are not. And that's going to tell you if you're aware or if you're not aware. It's all about systems.
Yeah, that's so good because we live so much of our lives on autopilot, and
Yeah.
we're not always aware of those things. Like something like as simple as breathing. We do not think about breathing, it just
No.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that they always say, like, hey, when you want to relax, they say, focus on your breath.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you never think about at all during the day. And sometimes it's, oh, this is harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Like my first experiences in meditation, I would always fall asleep. I would focus on my breath and then I'll be knocked out. I remember my yoga instructor, everybody's stretching, and I'm just laid out on the mat snoring.
Oh my goodness. That's hilarious. Wow. But yeah, that's a good example. It's those different things that if you're not aware, you become comfortable. And you have to be, and not to say that you don't want to be comfortable, but you want to be in a state where if you need to change something in your system, you can do it because you're aware.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Systems really, everybody talks about goals, everybody talks about success. And I saw this thing where it was talking about it's not about success, it's about systems. It's about what you have in place. It's about your patterns. How do
Yeah.
you respond to things? How do you handle things? What are you telling to yourself? So that's just really where it starts. Those are just tidbits of things that you can do. And they seem so minute, but if you start becoming aware and paying attention to things that you do, that makes it easier for you to change your habits, change your patterns. It makes you more aware. But it also allows you to see, okay, maybe this isn't the solution that I need. Maybe I need to try something else. Or, I've been at this job for, 15 years and I've been doing the same thing. What else am I good at? What other skills do I have? What else do I want to try? And the next thing you know, rather than retiring at 65 at a job, you went out and started your own business. You can make your own schedule, you can be your own boss. Not to say that work, you having a 9 to 5 is bad. Absolutely not. I believe in both. I believe in both. I'm a millennial. You get as much money as you can, work as much as you want, have some self-care in there, but you make it happen until you no longer can't. But when you can't, that way you can be comfortable. That's when you are comfortable. I think sometimes, and I was having this conversation with my dad, we sometimes do things backwards. We, in our 20s, we want to have fun and take trips and party. And, it's cool. But have you ever partied with a 50 or a 60-year-old?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, doing it completely backwards. 20s is great. 20s, you learn a lot of lessons. Sometimes you don't have the most money. 30s, you're building up. 40s and 50s, you've already done the work. You have the experience, you have the networks, you have the connections, you have the luxury. And then you can take trips and enjoy your life. And not to say that you can't do this all throughout it, because if you do it the right way, that can be your norm. It should be your norm. Vacations shouldn't be a thing where we get once a year. Absolutely not.
Mm.
Like, you really have to think about your systems and what you're doing, because you have the power to change your life. You don't have to have an ordinary life based off of what society says or what society thinks. No, you are more than capable and more than deserving to do whatever it is that you want to do. You just have to come up with a plan and have the right systems to make it happen.
Yeah. So you wrapped it all up nicely with figuring out who you want to be, being
Yeah.
aware of it, like whatever you're feeling, understanding why you're feeling that way, take some time to dig deep. And then, how you said about the goals, like everybody has these goals and
Yeah.
want to achieve this and that. But it was told to me one time, and it's something that stuck with me. You don't always rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your systems. So, what are your systems? What are your habits? What are the things that you're doing
Exactly.
on a day to day basis that's either keeping you where you are or moving you forward? And when you were talking about partying in your 20s or in like your younger years,
Yeah.
I'm with me observing the world. Sometimes it's, did you spend so much time partying and not building yourself?
Whew.
Then where it's like, oh, I'm later in life and it's like now I'm trying to build.
Yep. Hmm.
Yeah.
Like catch up. You
Yeah.
know,
'Cause you trade what you have for what you want. So it's like, okay, I'm partying. I don't have skills. Now it's like I don't have that much time. Now I got to go back and get the skills.
exactly. And I think a lot of times people are afraid to shed. Life is like, I hate to say it like this, when the ladies are going to be like, really? Life is like a chemical peel. Like it's like a shedding snake. Like you're
Okay.
going to go through so many different layers coming off of you, and during those times of those layers coming off of you, we like to hide, or we like to it becomes uncomfortable because it's a sense of, oh my goodness, it may be kind of ugly, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's taking off the old and allowing for the new to come out. And that's what you have to become comfortable with. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that process is shedding. You have
Yeah.
to let yourself shed, because if you try to stay who you were, you're going to end up chasing a version of yourself that's going to hold yourself back. As you shed, you become better. You become richer. Like if you look at a chemical peel, it literally, you have a product that's put on you, and it takes off all of the dark marks, the dead skin, and then you have this new bright flourishing skin. But what we forget to do is, when we shed, you still have to have maintenance. You still have to take care of yourself during the ugly stage, or you still have to take care of yourself when you have the brand new skin. Whatever that looks like, you have to maintain maintenance during your shedding seasons. And people forget, those seasons that you shed, they're not meant to hurt you. They're not meant to break you. They're meant to let a new you be rebirthed. And we often
Yeah.
go through that.
I'm glad that you even used rebirth, because
Yeah.
sometimes that old skin, those old layers, it does build up that armor and that resistance. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't want to let that go,
Yeah.
because now I'm new and fragile and exposed.
Yeah.
And I don't have that muscle and those layers built up.
Exactly.
And I had to ask myself this recently: am I willing to sacrifice everything and who I am now to be the
Mm.
person who I need to
I
become?
saw you post that, and I love that. When you posted that, I was like, but that's so real, because I've had so many moments recently where I've had to do that, and that's why I resonated with that, because it's like you have to choose. Are you going forward, or are you staying where you're at? And you're not even staying where you're at, because you're outgrowing yourself, and if you're not allowing yourself to outgrow yourself, you're doing a disjustice to yourself, and you're self-sabotaging. You have to be willing at any moment to sacrifice who you are for who you want to become, because you're only going to get better. Especially if you're walking in your purpose and you're being intentional, you're only going to get better. It may not seem like it, obstacles hurt, things happen. But if you are doing life the way that you should be, and what I mean by you should be is, if you're being true to yourself, if you're not harming anybody else or yourself, and you're looking to growth, and you're seeking to be one with you and your purpose and who you're meant to be, you're going to always win. It's just about how you win, and you figuring out that you can't control your wins. Like, you can't control what that's going to look like. It's like a baseball game. You don't know when it's going to be over. You can try and like clock it, but you're not going to get it every time. You don't know what it's going to look like. You don't know the moves. You don't know the other players. You just don't know.
Yeah, you can only control the inputs. You can't control the outputs. So I was on a meeting this morning, and somebody broke it down where it's like, okay, when you're praying, you're asking God for this and that, and it's like he's sending it out. It's done. But the thing is, you don't know when. You don't know when that package is going to
Ooh,
get delivered. And so it's
exactly.
like, can you still keep on course? Can you still keep with the plan? Or are you just going to keep moving around? And then it's like, oh, I sent you that package, but you moved. You're at a different address. I was like, ooh,
You didn't get it. Oof.
you didn't
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah. And
Now
that's the
your neighbor
thing.
got it. And you're like,
And
oh, I'm seeing them flourish and thrive. It's like, that was supposed to go to you.
yeah. And that's the thing. Like, that's what I call like my faith walk. Like, my faith walk has been so intense. I've had some moments where I'm just like, what is going on? What is
Mm.
happening? And I've had moments where I'm like, okay, let me just be still. Because we think that we're in control. And once you realize you're not in control, life, it gets so much better. Whatever God, the universe, ancestors, whatever it is that you believe in, there's already something that's already laid out for you. And so many people go against that, like you were saying, missing your package, missing the package that's for you. If you do what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to do it, you're good. And I know people may say, well, how do you know if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing? And, if you're doing it the right way? It's not about doing it the right way. It's about walking in your purpose and just, based on how you feel, if you're doing something that's for you. If you're
Yeah,
going to a
sometimes you
job
got to
every
do it
day,
messy.
yeah, like if you're going to a job that you hate every day, that's not for you. You may just have a purpose. That may just be a stop on your trip. It may be for your family, it may be for your finances, but that's not you walking in your purpose. That's you using a tool to get to what you need. Don't get comfortable. Once you use that tool, you have an exit plan. You have an exit strategy to walk in your purpose. And walking in your purpose isn't always going to be easy. It's going to come with some sacrifices.
Oh man,
No.
you're making me think I need to find my notebook. I wrote something recently
Mhm.
about what you just said, but yeah, finding your purpose and walking into it. How about this? For the day and age that we live in, with technology and everything is moving fast, and how does one develop that purpose, that steadfastness, that faith to see it out when it doesn't happen immediately?
So, okay, so I'm actually a person who struggles with that sometime because I put in a lot of work. And in my mind, I used to think, well, if I do good to the world, and if I'm good to people, and if I treat people right, and if I do what I'm supposed to, it's all going to work out. It is all going to work out. But life is always going to life. And what
Hmm.
I mean by that is just because you're a good person, just because you do what you think that you're supposed to do, you're still going to have obstacles. It's not going it's not going to happen when you think it's going to happen. Whatever you think is going to happen, think the opposite because you're not on your timing. There may be something that you're planning that, God or the universe or the ancestors have a completely different plan, and that plan is being redirected to protect you because we can only see what we can see. And most of the time, we're focused on what's in front of us. You're not seeing everything around you. You're not paying attention to everything that's around you. So you have to give yourself grace and you have to be patient with yourself. And you have to be patient with the people around you and understand that it's like a butterfly effect. What's meant to happen is going to happen, and you have to play your role to get the wins that you want, to get the success that you want, to get where you need to be. You have to play your role, and to be able to play your role is understanding you. This is where getting to know you is going to let you just be more comfortable with that delayed gratification because that's what we think of it as. So most of the time it's right on time, but to us it feels like I've put in the work, I've done this, I've been doing this. And sometimes get off social media. I hate to say it like that, especially as someone who does branding and marketing and does social media. I have days where because we're at a lot of the same events. We are at events all the time. We are around people all the time. Learn how to have a moment for yourself. Whether it's sitting, and just enjoying a movie, or whether it's, going out to, get some sushi or whatever it may be, you have to be comfortable with you because what can happen is we go to all these events and people are taking energy from you and taking energy. You have to recharge. And when you're able to sit with yourself, like sit in you, that makes it easier to be able to be patient and wait what's for you because you're constant in who you are and you're comfortable with who you are. We're forever working on ourselves. But
Hmm.
you have to learn to give yourself grace. And this is something that I had to learn because I was so hard on myself. Before I had my son, I didn't know how to say no. My boundaries were terrible. I was a workaholic. Now, the crazy thing is now I probably work the same amount that I did before, but I've put in self care. I've inserted saying no. I've put in boundaries. So I enjoy my work more now because I've implemented all of that. Even though it makes me the same amount of work, I've put in better systems. And I allow myself to have that time to recharge. So you have to give yourself grace. That way you can be patient.
Yeah. So I know we've been talking a lot about purpose, and it made me think, you know, a lot of times when we talk about purpose, we think of it in terms of ourselves. Like, oh, what is it that I can get from it? Or I'm doing this with a means to an end. But really, a purpose isn't necessarily about you.
Not at
It's
all.
about what you can give and how you can light up and improve the lives of others.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I realized that a long time ago. I had a conversation with my dad. Um, we have all type of conversations, and what I realized a while ago is that my purpose and my gift was never for me. Never.
Hmm.
It's something that I like to do, but it was never about me. And at first, it started off as social media. It started off as going to events and talking to people. Increasing my portfolio. But that's why I changed my a lot of my work from social media management to branding and marketing because I understood that it wasn't about me. It's about telling your story. It's about you getting yourself out there. I'm just the tool to help you do that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
even in that, what you said, when people are like, "Okay, I'm telling my story," but it's like I'm telling my story for my benefit and my glory, and it's like it's
Yeah.
still
Not
not
about you.
about you because, like how you said, are you working a job and trying to get the income and all of this? But all of that is just for self gratification, and I'm learning in this journey that the more I do for others, it doesn't, I'm not really necessarily burnt out because, again, it takes nothing from my candle to light your candle.
Exactly. You just get a bigger flame. You get more light.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's again, you'll have more. It's crazy. It's just the opposite. Like the
Yeah.
more you pour into others, the more you'll get for yourself. But it's like, how do we get out of our own way of like, oh, I'm thinking about me, 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 me.
Yeah.
And then now the frustration comes on.
I saw this picture yesterday and it was talking about what you pour into others is what you get back. And it looks like it's like you've probably seen it. It was like four cubicles and like they were all dumping trash. So everybody was getting trash. So like it's like you're pouring trash into another person and that's what you're getting back. But if you pour light into another person, if you pour hope and grace into another person, that's what you're going to get back. So we do have to be mindful of what we're pouring into other people, but that starts with understanding what we have into us. Like what you
Mhm.
have in you is what you're going to pour into people. And if you're not ready to pour into someone, that's okay. You just have to go back and work on you. So that's where being intentional, being mindful, working on those systems. Because even though it includes you, like you said, it's not about you. And that's where learning to be selfish and selfless at the same time. You're working on you because you need to work on you. But you working on you is not just for you. It affects you temporarily, but who does it affect after you? That's creating legacy. A lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand what is it you're creating and who are you creating it for. We talk about generational wealth and a lot of people, think that it's just in terms of money. No, it's in terms of access, networks, knowledge, privilege, all of these different things that one person may have thought that they were creating it for themselves, but they weren't. Like I look at my grandparents and they passed down so much, not just, monetarily, but in knowledge, in value and in understandings and characteristics because of what their parents were not able to do. And now I'm looking at, well, what is it that I want to pass down? Yeah, of course, do I want my son to have an abundance of money? Absolutely. But if I teach you how to do what I did and do it better, then you can teach your kids. And then where we are now, we can be 5 steps ahead in the next 1 to 2 generations. It's
Yeah.
about what you pass down.
Yeah. And that comes down to mindset and lifestyle. And I know it's just, can you think and see above your vision right now? So sometimes we're so stuck in our day-to-day lives that we can't get that bird's eye view of what's down the road. So one of the things for me is like when I go and visit my grandparents in California, like the last time I did that, oh man, it blew my mind just watching my grandpa just train in the morning. And then he stopped and looked at me. He just had this little smile on his face and he said 2 words. He said absolute focus. And then he went back to training. And it just
Yeah.
like after he said that, I watched how focused and how intentional each move was.
Yeah.
And then when he messed up, he told me, he's like, Tino, mistakes are valid.
Mm.
And I said, what? He's like, yeah, mistakes are valid. Everybody makes mistakes. Mistakes are valid. It's you put an effort into something.
Yeah.
And just watching him, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is like a lifetime of training just condensed into 2 words.
Yeah.
And it just, oh, it blew my mind. It
Yeah.
blew my mind.
But it's things like that. It's the substance and the value of those moments. And I think people don't appreciate those moments as much. Like I always tell all my friends, if your grandparents are alive, call them. If your parents are alive, call them. I am the biggest advocate for loving on your people. I called my grandparents and saw them up until I no longer could. Luckily, I have, I want to say 3 out of 7 grandparents now. I've had additional grandparents, and the knowledge that I've always been able to get from them because of their experiences, it's like, that's what I want, sitting down and talking to people. Half of the time, people don't know who their grandparents are and the knowledge and the wisdom that they have because they don't talk to them, because they don't want to. And it's like, do you understand? Do you understand how your mindset and how your life could change if you just talk to your grandparents and listen to their story? You don't even have to say anything.
Ooh,
Listen
ooh.
to their story, listen to their life, listen to the decisions that they made, if they're married, if they're not, why they chose to make those decisions. Listen to their mindset, because what's going to happen is, there's this video, and at the men's conference when we were at, and they were talking about, the grandfather was like, his great great grandson was going to be walking again. And it's like, you do all of this stuff to build up, and you're passing down, the money, but you're not passing down the knowledge. Therefore, it puts us back
Mhm.
where we once were. The goal isn't to go back. The goal is to always move forward. But if you don't have the articulation and the knowledge and the wisdom, like, your first mentors are your parents, but then they're your grandparents. That is what you want to learn, because there's so much. I've been so blessed to have so many mentors around me and so many peers around me that talk and tell me their life and tell me their experiences and tell me their mistakes and their successes, because they want to see me succeed. But I listen. That's one thing. When I always tell people, I went to school and I got both of my degrees in communications. But what they don't tell you, what they don't teach you, they teach you how to talk, they teach you how to dissect everything someone says, but they don't teach you how to effectively and actively listen. That I had to learn at home, because once you listen, you can take away the lesson from somebody's experience without having to go through the experience yourself. If you listen the right way, you can apply so much from what people have already done to your life. You already have the blueprint. All you
Mm.
got to do is listen. You don't have to recreate the experiences. You don't have to have those obstacles. The goal is for you to have new obstacles that nobody in your family has ever had. That way, when it's time, you become the grandparent, then you can pass, or you become the mentor. You can pass down those new lessons that nobody had ever encountered.
Absolutely right. Because if my grandparents didn't live the like for me, I didn't grow up with my grandparents in my life. Honestly, I didn't know they existed. They didn't know I existed up until a certain point in my life. But then when I went out to visit them and sat down, talked with them, we shared our stories, there wouldn't be a Gordon Legacy Consulting without them, honestly. I would not operate my business the way I do. And the thing is, they are martial artists. They are not financial professionals at all.
Yeah.
How the connection of martial arts and finance, people like again, just being aware to make those connections.
Yeah.
I am super grateful for them and all of that.
Yeah. But that's the seed. See, that's
Yeah,
the thing. Those are the seeds that lead to legacy. Those are the seeds that lead to so many other things.
exactly.
It's about the planting. That those conversations, those long talks, those million of conversations of grandma and grandpa telling you about their childhood, those are the seeds, because it's not about what they're saying. It's about what they're saying, but it's about what you take from what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's about what you take and how you apply it.
Yeah. So with that, because I know people have been asking me to ask you, like again, how do I take the step out there and tell my story? Because they love how you say you are your brand.
You are. So this is the thing. Telling your story, the part that I don't share with people is it's gonna get emotional.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna get emotional. It's going to be new. It's gonna be uncomfortable, but it's not gonna be a cakewalk. But it's you. You choose what you want to tell for your story. Like, whenever I have an opportunity to tell my story, there are a few things that I pinpoint. I pinpoint that I'm a mother. The reason why I pinpoint that I'm a mother is because I was always one of those people where I'm like, I'm not going to have children until I'm almost 40. I was very much set on being a career woman and traveling and having my business and all of that. And I almost missed out by thinking that I knew what I wanted. Another part of my story that I always want people to know is I went from having an IEP to having a master's degree and owning my own marketing agency and working with state officials and different organizations and businesses and campaigns and being able to build them up. These are things that people don't want to tell you about, the crazy parts. I had so many health issues growing up as a child. I saw my parents go through a lot. I saw nights where my dad couldn't make it to, our track meets, or, he woke up out of his sleep for us to go to prom, but then had to go back to sleep because he had to get back on the road. I see all of these things. And telling that story is, it's important. Like, I saw my father put his education on hold to put me, my sister, my cousin, and his former wife through school. Four people. When he didn't have to make the choice, he could have just focused on him. So it's sacrifices. The reason why I tell people to share their story is because you have to share your obstacles. You have to share your sacrifices. It's not a cakewalk. You know, I talk about things with, me and my mother. We didn't always have the best relationship because I didn't understand her, because I didn't listen to her the way that I should have as a teenager. But once I became a mother, I went back and I listened different, and I understood so much about her because I could relate from her. And this being a woman that I came from, that's why it's important for you to share your story. Because now that I'm a mother and being a woman, there's so many things that she's not only telling me, but I'm more keen and willing to listen to because it applies to what I'm doing. If you share your story before it needs to be applied and it's out there in the world, you know how much you can change, not only for yourself, but for the people around you. There's two components to sharing your story. One, you got to get started, you got to share it. And it may be ugly, it may be down and dirty, it may be horrible, but it's your story, it's your truth. Once you begin to live in your truth and share your truth, life becomes so much better. I am a product of my parents' truth. I am a product of my grandparents' truth, which allowed me to be a product of my own truth. Anybody that knows me, I'm not perfect. I am dramatic. I can be annoying. I always want to eat. Like there's so much. That's all. I'm a lot. I'm a little person, and I'm 5'4.5", Tino. But in my mind, I'm 5'8". I know little people, we think that we are bigger than what we are, but I have such a big personality because I live in my truth. It's rare that you're gonna see me. You will probably never see me walk into a room and not greet anybody and not smile because one, it's not by me that I'm in that room. It's by design and purpose from God that I'm in that room. So, whatever room that I'm in, I need to be intentional, not only share my story, but listen to everybody else's story because those connections are going to change the world. So, when I say you are your brand, you being your brand, you are your truth. You may have the worst story that you may think, but you're still your truth, and your existence means something in this world. People think that their truth and their story is something to be ashamed about. No, you are a gift to this world. Every person walking around here is a gift. Now, are you going to stay wrapped or are you going to unwrap yourself? When you unwrap a gift, tearing that paper off and tearing that bow is not a cute process. On Christmas morning, when people are tearing it, they're not like, oh, let me be careful unwrapping the bow. Let me, try not to rip the wrapping paper. No, tear it open, rip it open. And then what do? You get something wonderful. And that's what people are walking around as. When you're not sharing your story and you're not sharing your brand and you're not talking about who you are that person walking around. You're that gift walking around with that bow and that wrapping paper. Yeah, you may look nice, but you're closed up. No, it's just walking around. But once you take all of that off, you're the gift.
Ooh, that's interesting because you're walking around as this pretty wrapped gift, but nobody knows what's on the inside.
No,
Then it's like, do you even know what's on the inside? Do you know what your gift is? Because it's so
exactly.
wrapped up. It's been given to you, but you haven't taken the time to unwrap it, so you don't. Oh man, that goes back to like this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it
Listen,
shine.
you have to. I always told my dad, I always told my parents, I was like, I'm a light. I always knew for a light. And I was like, I always told them, I am a light. I am a chosen one. I am a chosen person. And then it wasn't until my son that I realized what I was chosen for. And it was like, I may be a light and I may be chosen, but it was for that right there, not for what I thought. Branding, marketing, telling your story is wonderful, but I have to tell my story. I have to continue my story. So
Mm,
it's about unwrapping yourself and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. We are who we are, and who you are is amazing. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter who you may have been in other chapters. Who you choose to be right now and what you choose to lead your light with, because that's what you're doing. You are the light. You are being carried through a torch, and it's just how you choose to do it. Now whether you choose to ignite that light and pour your own gasoline, or whether you choose to put it out, that determines you.
yeah, I truly appreciate your mindset on that, especially as a parent. Even though I'm not a parent myself,
Mhm.
but I look at parents all the time,
Yeah.
and it's like you want to encourage your child, but you're not. It's more of do as I say, not as I do type
uh,
of thing, where it's like, oh, you want to encourage them to go after their goals and their dreams and who they could be, but they're watching you be miserable. Like how you said, go to a job that you hate or just doing stuff. Like, I get it. It's like you're surviving, but are you living?
Yeah.
And sometimes those two things can be separated, because like, yeah, you can have your job for survival and income and all of that, but then what else are you doing to be that light?
I
Maybe you should volunteer, be a coach or something.
I learned a while ago in my career that a job is a job and there's always another one. I had a moment where I was working for one of the prominent TV stations out in Rockford, and they before they knew that I had a business. Some of my clients had been on the show. I was a producer on one of their shows, and I remember I had a letter that was presented to me by my boss, and she was like, we found out about your business, which they had known about. Um, and well, you have to stop doing your business and sign this letter, or we have to terminate you. I made two calls. I called my dad, and at that time, I called one of my clients. And I knew what my gut was telling me, but I was like, this is where you tap into wisdom, because I'm also a millennial, and we'll walk out. We will be like, no 2 weeks notice, no letter, no nothing. I'm
Hey, all
out.
the time, deuces.
I'm out. I'm out. And so I had to call for some wisdom, and they both were like, what does your gut say? And I was like, I'm about to walk. And that was the moment where I realized what you build for you is important, because anybody can take a job from you.
Hmm.
Anybody. And you can always go and get another one. But what
Hmm.
that taught me is that I could use my God given gift and skill and walk in my purpose. And that day, I chose me and my purpose over a job. And when I tell you, anytime I've needed to walk away or to have a new chapter, I've always had that. And the reason why is because I've learned from my parents at an early age, having something from you and using what God put in you will never steer you wrong. When you're walking in your purpose, it's always going to be that light. And you can be in the darkest of place, but that light is going to carry you. It's going to carry you in ways that you wouldn't have even thought. I've been in rooms where I was the youngest, I was the only woman, I've been the only Black person. And I've been in some rooms where, in my mind, I should have never even been in. I mean, for goodness gracious, when I was in grad school, I started grad classes as a junior, and I was in classes with international lawyers. I felt like a piece of meat thrown right in the jungle, but it challenged me to be in environments that weren't made for me. But when
Hmm.
I was using my gift and walking in my purpose, it doesn't matter what the environment is like. If you're going to shine, you're going to shine. And that's
Hmm.
why your story is important. That's why your purpose is important. That's why understanding that it's not what, like, especially as a parent now, it's not what I say goes. No. I tell my son we have these things. He's about to be 2. And like there are moments where I'm like, no negotiations, no negotiations. Like, you have to take a bath tonight, no negotiations. You have to eat, no negotiations. But there are other times, like the other night, he wanted to sleep in his bed with his Paw Patrol sandals that light up. Okay, we have some negotiations, because it's like you have to be able to make your decisions on what you want
Hmm.
to do. He has a complete, different personality. I would sleep in my bed with Paw Patrol, sandals on that light up. But for him, he's about to be 2. Absolutely. He likes the way they feel on his feet. He likes to rub them together and see them light up. Okay, cool. But it's where you are, it's your perspective, and your perspective isn't always the same as somebody else's. So you have to tap into that empathic side of you and step out of your shoes and see, like, oh, okay, if that's what you want to do, as long as you're not harming yourself or you're not harming anybody else and you haven't worn these outside. So it's like, okay. So it's just about, it's about how you think about things. Sometimes it's like you said, mindset. You got to change your mindset, and you have to know that you are not just a gift, but the gift.
Hmm. And
Right.
the gift that keeps on giving.
Forever, forever. And you're get the thing about it is that wrapping paper, this is the thing. Once you take that wrapping paper off, then you can be either re-gifted or re-wrapped. But the thing about it is, it's with more. It's literally like, oh, you're going shopping. And it's like, okay, I can add more into my cart now because I was able to go and get a bigger cart, or I was
Yeah.
able to get a bigger vehicle and I can put more in it. But you got to dump some things out too. You got to dump some things out. You can't be, a gift turning into coal because you've been sat so long that everything inside is rotten. That's not going to work.
Yeah, when you first talked about the wrapping paper, I was laughing because it made me think of my mom, because when she unwraps gifts, it is so elegant and delicate. She doesn't shred it. She unfolds each little crease and corner, and she's like, "I'm going to use this wrapping paper again. I'm going to pass it down." And it made me think, like, when the last time when we saw each other at the event, and you were asking you about the coat that you were wearing, and you was like, "It's my grandma's." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, think
Yeah.
of like it's literally something that wraps you that she was able to keep and pass down." And I'm like, "Wow, it's all connected."
The crazy thing is, so that day I had on my grandma's coat, and the next day I had on my grandfather's sweater with my grandmother's coat.
Mm.
And that's exactly how I felt. I really just felt wrapped in their arms. And it was like it was almost like a superpower. Kind
Oh
of.
man, I know that feeling exact, because check this out right here. My grandpa made me some beads.
Yeah.
And every time I wear these beads, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a
It's that
grandmaster
energy.
now."
But yeah, it's that energy, it's that wisdom, it's your experience with them that gets channeled. And it's
Oh
there's
yeah.
nothing like it.
Boop. There we go.
Yeah, but that's because you understand your grandfather's story and the value of who he is and who he was, and that's in you, and you have that passed down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
that's why
man.
that's why it's important to tell your story. That's what I mean when I say you are your brand. It's kind of like when people say you are your ancestors. You are your truth. Yeah.
Oh man. So, getting to that hour mark, and you know what I like to do? Got my whole deck of cards right here.
It's time.
Oh
Pull
boy.
it out, pull it out.
Oh boy. So, I'm just gonna flip my thumb through here.
All
You
right.
let me know when to stop, and that's the question I'll ask.
All right, all right, all right. And stop.
All right. Ooh, 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 ooh. Okay, so this is fate, because it's something that we kind of already talked about.
Okay.
How can someone discover their true purpose in life?
Ooh, how can someone discover their true purpose in life? I don't think you discover your purpose in life. I think your purpose comes to you, and it's going to come to you multiple times, and it's up to you to choose to accept it. Um, it's kind of like if you know that you're not supposed to be in a certain place, things are going to keep happening for you to be removed. Like you're going to end up where you're supposed to be. So for someone to discover their purpose, let your purpose find you and accept it. And you'll know. I can't describe how you'll know. It's like a comforting warm hot chocolate with marshmallows type feeling.
Okay.
Like it's this sweet, savory, warm feeling where you're comfortable. You're not freaking out. You don't have anxiety about it. Your purpose will find you. And when it finds you, it's kind of like an umbrella in the rain. The whole world can be having a storm, but you're covered.
Mm, mm, ooh.
Yeah.
That can go deeper. I'm not even gonna get into that. So when I was putting the cards back, one card just kind of jumped out from the deck. So it's a card that obviously wants to be seen, and so I'm just gonna read it.
Mhm.
Tell a story of a stranger you met that you'll never forget.
A stranger that I met that I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, I meet a lot of people. A lot of people, a lot of people, a lot of people, a lot of people. A stranger that I met that I won't forget.
So I'll go and answer this one. Um, so I remember one day in college, I was waiting for the bus. I was getting on the bus to go across town to do something. I don't even remember what I was doing, but I remember this girl walked up to me and she just stared at me for a while,
Mm,
and I was just like, okay. And then she said, "You have the saddest eyes."
mm,
And I was sitting there going like, yeah, sure, I've been through a lot in my childhood and growing up and whatnot, but I didn't realize like the energy that I was carrying was just so down, was
mm.
just so sad. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, okay, my light
Yeah.
is not shining right now. And so that moment made me think like, okay, how am I impacting others? Is my story bringing people down? Is
Mm.
my energy bringing people down, or is it inspiring and lighting people up? So I don't know who that girl was. I just remember that moment, and I was like, man, okay, sure. Things that happen to me are not necessarily, it's all about how you look at it, because it's like, did this happen to you or did this happen for you? So when you share your story,
Yeah.
when you share those down moments in your life, it's like, how did you overcome it to then be able to inspire somebody else?
I think that do you still want me to answer the question or the
Yeah,
original
you,
question?
you can.
I think a stranger that I met. So it's weird because I often have times where I meet people who remind me of my grandmother.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's the weirdest thing. Um, and I'll be out places, and every now and then I'll see a woman where from the back it looks like her. And so my grandmother passed away 2 days after my birthday while I was pregnant, and she was
Mm.
like a huge mother figure for me. I had met this lady just out, and it stopped me in my tracks because it was like, oh, I was like, I had to remember, like, a whoa. And then after I had left the lady, I went to call my grandmother, and it was a moment where I was like, oh, she's not here. But meeting that lady, she had such a presence and an energy where she felt like my grandmother. And it was a moment where it was like, we meet people, and when you really take in their experiences and their energy of who they are, it's amazing. And a part of it kind of heals you, but a part of it is kind of scary because it's like, oh, wow, I didn't know I needed that. And this is where the whole thing of we need communal people. So I meet so many people, and I meet so many, I don't want to necessarily call them strangers, but I have so many experiences with people that
Hmm.
are foreign or unrecognized, but then there are some that are recognizable. And that is the moment where how you can meet someone or walk past someone that you don't even know, but the experience of seeing them or walking by them is so recognizable that it feels like a love that could never be replaced, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And I didn't mean to get deep. That I didn't get
No,
take
no.
that and get
So,
deep, but
so, so the thing is, I'm, I love it. I love it because I love deep, meaningful conversations. And I feel like too many times it's surface.
yeah,
It's just like, okay, everybody could pick up the stuff on the surface, but it's through your life, through your stories, through your experiences that we actually have the deeper meanings, the foundation. Because again, if you're going to build something, you got to go down. You have to go deep and establish that foundation and build on top of that. And that goes for life. That definitely goes for finances. That goes for anything. So, too many times we like to build from the top down, and then something happens, or we get a crisis, and it's like we don't understand who we are, or even in the financial aspect, it's like, oh, we didn't prepare for this rainy day or whatnot,
exactly.
and you're simply just not rooted.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That is true. That's definitely true. You know, when you sit down and you take time and you just listen to people and learn them, it teaches you a lot about yourself. That's how I figured out who I was, by listening to my grandparents, by listening to my parents, because they always shared their truth with me. You know, even when they didn't say it, I could see their truth, I could feel their truth. And that allowed me to never have a moment where I was ashamed of my truth or who I was becoming. Like peer pressure didn't really work for me in school because I was that weird kid. Like I was always me and I've always been me and I've
Hmm.
always been comfortable in me because of that. So
Mm.
yeah, so
Oh
stay
man.
true to you.
Oh man, oh man, oh man. So, what do you want to leave the people with? Like, something that they can use and apply to their lives, at least the smallest action step to get the ball rolling. Because I know we talked about you are your brand today, but I mean, this episode was really for the grandparents. Shout out to all the grandparents out there.
Man, man,
Oh
man,
man.
man. You know what I can leave people with? Um, Learn your legacy. And since we are talking about grandparents, if your grandparents or even your parents are alive, or if you have children that you haven't spoken to, man, pick up the phone and call them. Because when you can't, you can't. But when you can. You know, don't wait until they're not here. Don't make excuses. Work, travel, whatever. Like while they're here on this world, soak up as much as you can, learn as much as you can, love on them as much as you can, and let them love on you. Because you know, when my grandmother passed, I didn't process it the way that I should have because I was carrying my son and I just wanted to be mindful. But with losing my grandfather, like it's really had me appreciate what they were able to give us. And you know, my grandfather was 75. I'm 29. I'll be 30 next year. So the fact that I was able to have 29 years of him and then have um 27 years of my grandmother, it's just everything that they were able to give me and even what they've given me and my father and my aunts and my uncles is just something to be cherished. So really cherish your lineage, learn your legacy, because the thing about it is you can't leave a legacy if you don't know where you've come from. Like you have to know where you come from, where you come from, that way you can know where you're going. So learn your legacy and love your legacy. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say to that, everybody's going to leave a legacy. You're either going to leave it with intention and purpose, or you're going to leave it by accident and coincidence.
Yeah.
And to drive that nail home for people,
Yeah.
look, if your grandparents are, let's just say your grandparents are 80. They say life expectancy is 85, right? So your grandparents may have 5 more years left, depending on statistics and all of that. And
Mhm.
if you only see them maybe once or twice a year, that means you only have 10 more times to see them.
Mm.
So are you creating more opportunities to see them, or are you being intentional, or are you just going to let it be coincidence, circumstances, and then those moments where you're going to be like, oh, I wish I woulda, coulda, shoulda. You don't want to live your life with regret. So
No.
shout out to the grandparents, call your family, love
Yeah.
them, hug them, say hi. you know
Absolutely.
get something that reminds you of them. You had the coat, I got these beads.
Yes.
Just let them know you appreciate them for carrying the baton this far, and then taking it from them, and you're going to carry it further.
Absolutely.
All right. And so, with that being said, it's been another exciting episode,
Mm.
Mercedes. It's always a pleasure.
Thank
Always.
you. Thank you. It's
Whether
a
we,
pleasure to be.
I mean, honestly, we should just record every conversation we ever have.
We probably should. We probably should.
Truthfully, yeah,
I'm here for it. I am here for it. It's an honor to always be welcome. You know, it's an honor to be able to have conversations with you, and I just want to thank you for even creating this platform, and just being able to do the work that you do. Because to you, obviously, you know that you're creating legacy, but you're changing the world, and people need you. You're an asset, you're a tool. So just keep doing what you're doing and know that you're valued and appreciated and that this is amazing. And
Oh, yeah, we're gonna change the world. We are absolutely legendary, Mercedes.
yes,
Absolutely legendary. Changing the world, changing the universe. Once people start expanding off of Earth and into Mars and
yep.
asteroids or whatever, we will be there because your legacy is still on the line. And with that being said, come see us in person. Where can they find you, Mercedes?
Yeah, I am Mercedes Joyner on all platforms. JMC Strategic Consulting on all platforms. Like I said, Mercedes Joyner. My email is mjoyner@jmcstrategicconsulting.com. And yeah, just connect with me. Connect with me on social media. Connect with me through my email. And if that doesn't work, you can always reach out to Tino and he can give you my information. So yeah.
All right. And so with that being said, I hope you all enjoy your day, whether you're watching this live or catching it on the replay. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.
Yes.